No, I ain't doing all that.
Really?
I really thought he was.
It's been in my
I just wanted to have a 4-year degree.
not wanting to not be able to have
So
that.
be a chef, we're fantastic, but at least I know how
So is that your
to. My job is to keep
first year? I wasn't able to keep this piece of paper.
Yeah, a lot of people want
Good evening. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Town of Wendell Board of Commissioners and welcome you all here tonight. Thank you for being here with us. Our Pledge of Allegiance tonight is being led by Santiago Bazan Carvalho. Did I say it right? Can you come step right over here? I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Santiago arrived in Lake Myra Elementary School in 2015 after living for 3 years in Mexico. At that time, he spoke no English and faced a lot of challenges because of that. He confronted these obstacles with perseverance and quickly acquired the language skills he needed to adapt to a new culture and school environment. He's intelligent, funny, and charismatic, extremely kind and well-mannered. He greets teachers in the hallway daily by saying good morning and hope you're having a great evening with a bright smile. He's well-liked by his peers and considered a strong leader at Lake Myra Elementary. So we're very proud of him and we're proud to have him lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. You can go back to your seat now. We sure are proud of you. Our invocation tonight is brought to us by the Wendell Council of Churches of St. Eugene's Catholic Church, Brother Emmanuel. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. We thank you, God, for the gift of life and for all the blessing we have received from you. At this moment, we gather together as a family. We ask you to send forth your Holy Spirit upon us and to lead us during this meeting so that our testimony of life help our brothers and sisters to recognize your greatness in the way we live and serve them. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Do I have any adjustments of the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to motion to add an agenda item number 5, the presentation of Hartwell Wright from the NC League of Municipalities, and we can adjust all other items just down the list accordingly.
Okay, so we're going to put Mr. Wright at number 5 and let all the rest slide down 1.
And with that, I'll make a motion to approve as well.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the agenda amended, adding Hartwell Wright as number 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank y'all very much. We have no one signed up tonight for public comment. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item number 4 is the recognition of Lake Myra Elementary School Jane Ferguson. Ms. Ferguson, if you can come stand at the podium. Ms. Ferguson, Jane Ferguson, first realized she wanted to teach English as a second language while studying Spanish abroad in Costa Rica. She was greatly humbled by the experience of being a second language learner herself and decided she wanted to spend her life serving English as a second language students in North Carolina. She's taught English as a second language at Wake County Public Schools for 12 years, came to Lake Myra Elementary when the school first opened 9 years ago. She has a passion for working with diverse families and helping them feel connected to the school community. She strives for strong relationships with her students and empowers them to become leaders in their school and greater community. She integrates technology into her lessons daily to ensure the students are engaged in learning and preparing for the future. Her principal appreciates her more than she will ever know, and she has been essential in creating a collaborative and cohesive climate for all students and teachers and families at Lake Myra. We just wanted to thank you for all the things that you do for our children here in Wendell and congratulate you for being recognized by your principal in your school at Lake Myra Elementary.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And the reason why I do what I do are students like Santiago and the wonderful teachers. There are 3 here supporting me and supporting Santiago. And Lake Myra is just a fabulous school. Like Mayor said, I've been there since we opened. This is our 9th year, and we're always loving to have volunteers and support from the community and visitors. So you're all welcome to come and read with our students, and we love book donations, and we're having Literacy Week coming up in March, the first week of March, and our Leadership Day will be in the spring. Usually it's in May, but we have so many great things going on at Lake Myra, so we'd love to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Number 5, we're going to hear from Mr. Hartwell Wright from the North Carolina League of Municipalities on the process of recruiting and hiring a town manager. Good evening, and thank you for being here with us.
Council. I didn't realize when I got here that I would be going ahead of all these folks, and so y'all, I apologize. I was not here for that.
You're fine. They're just
I bring you
here for
greetings from your
watching.
League of Municipalities.
Thank you.
And, well, the staff, WRPD citizens might get me outside. So. But I do bring you greetings from your League of Municipalities. It is always a pleasure for the staff to be able to come out here and meet with our members face to face. And typically, Mayor, this process that we're going to talk about hiring a manager, I can do this for the better part of an hour. But seeing your agenda, let's do the condensed version for now, and if you see the need to pick this up later on, we'd be happy to come back and talk to you in a work session, that sort of thing. Okay? Would that meet your need tonight, Mayor?
I think it will. Thank you very much.
Okay. I've given you a handout, Mayor, and I normally would go through this, but I'm not going to take your time and go through this line by line, but I'm just going to do a quick recap of this,
okay,
if that would work for you. I know that you have some time before Ms. Piner retires. That's going to be a planned exodus that allows you time to start your recruitment process early on and get your manager here, hopefully before she leaves. I will tell you that under normal circumstances, this process takes about 6 months from beginning to end. You can shorten that process by doing a few things, or it could take longer. My only suggestion to you in your timing is to take as long as you need to get the right person. If you go through a process and the right person, it just doesn't feel right for you, start all over again. It is better for you to take that extra time to get the right person for your town than it is to hire the wrong manager. Okay. Mayor, I typically like to give what I call a state of the state for North Carolina. I checked the website before I left home this afternoon, and currently there are 41 vacancies in North Carolina. There are 540 cities, towns, and villages, and 100 counties in North Carolina. But only about 300 of the cities have some form of a manager, it's either a manager or an administrator under a mayor-council form of government. Bottom line is, there's better than a 10% vacancy rate right now in North Carolina between the cities and the counties. And the moral of that story is, it's a good chance that once you begin your process, that you will be competing with a lot of your peers around the state for some of the same candidates. And I think it's important for you to remember from the very beginning, going into this until you sign a contract with your new manager, the way the board conducts themselves through this process can absolutely sway the opinions of your candidates as whether they'd rather work here or somewhere else if they are being considered in multiple sites. I can assure you that that will make a huge difference. Mayor, there are 2 or 3 things that I think are extremely important for you to decide before you do anything. And you've got plenty of time to do that. But the first thing I think you need to decide is, how are you going to conduct this process? Is the board going to do all of this themselves? Are you going to do the recruitment and the selection, do the interviews, do the screening, do all of that yourselves? Or are you going to hire a consultant to do part of that for you? Or are you going to hire a consultant to bring in the top candidates for you to consider? Or that's a decision that you really need to make before you begin the process. And it would be advertised that way. For example, if you're going to hire a consultant, then you won't need me to come and talk to you. And this consultant will do the things that I would try to guide you into doing. And instead of having someone that knows how to do that, we go step by step in telling you how that process works. So it's very important to make that decision, first of all, before you start advertising. And the second decision, I think, is really important is, when you begin your process, is this going to be a confidential process or not? And let me just, we won't get into the merits of either one of them. I will tell you that in North Carolina, when you advertise for this position and you receive an applicant, that applicant is applying here under the statutes for confidentiality in North Carolina. And without their consent, you cannot make public any of those candidates that apply for a position here without violating the law. You got a town attorney can affirm any of these things that I'm saying. I am not an attorney, I'm just an old HR guy. But if you're going to expose the name and identity of any of your candidates, you must get their permission to do that before you release their names. Any questions about that? Okay. And then lastly, and if you hire a consultant, they will put all that program together for you. Again, in determining whether you're going to do this yourselves or hiring a consultant, if you need to identify, if you're going to hire a consultant, what you expect the consultant to do versus what you're going to do yourselves. And list all of those things out specifically in the agreement that you have with your consultant. Any questions about that? Whether you do it yourselves or you hire a consultant, the process is going to be pretty much the same. First thing you'll need to do is to determine what you're looking for in your next town manager and build a profile of what you expect your next town manager to look like. And if you're doing it or a consultant's doing it, the profile that you develop, that this board develops, is the tool that they will need, or either you will need to determine what who your candidates are. You will use that profile that you develop as the measuring stick to measure all the candidates by as you go through this process. And it won't be left up to individual opinions and ideas. So it's going to be imperative that you come together in a session to build this profile and at least agree collectively on the top things that you're looking for in your next town manager. It's pretty much going to be impossible for you all to agree on every little thing that you're looking for, because it's probably just not going to happen if you try to do that. But at least get your top 3 or 4 things that are most important to this board and the things that are going on in the town of Wendell that you're going to be looking for, and get that built into the profile before you begin your process. And if you do it yourselves, or if you get a consultant, and I know I'm speeding through this because I just got this feeling that you're probably going to get some type of external assistance before you begin this process. Just from if I'm reading this wrong, I apologize, but you need to ensure that your consultant, whomever it is, when they start vetting their candidates, that they vet them according to what your requirements are, not what they're looking for, but what your requirements are. The consultant works for you. And the board as a whole is the hiring board. It's not any individual members of the board, it's the collective wisdom of the entire board. But when your consultant does their backgrounds and starts to doing the reference checks and all that on these candidates, it's imperative, in my opinion, and Mr. Cawley can speak to this, but when you identify the candidate that you really like, that before you do anything, even talk about an offer, is to do a complete and thorough background investigation on that individual. And I mean a complete and thorough background. That's to include even your driving license, your federal credit checks, your criminal checks, both state and federal. Make sure your consultant does all of those things, because I can attest to you firsthand how embarrassing it is for an elected body to go through all this work and hire a manager, and just a few months later, something from their background, tax evasions or some criminal activity pops up that you didn't find out, and it's extremely embarrassing to the board if that happens. So, and it's important, and Jim can help you with this. When you do backgrounds, do everywhere they've lived and worked, whatever state it is, and in the federal system. Those two systems don't talk together. Even in today's environment, they are two separate independent systems, so you have to get a consultant to check both of them. There are consultants out there now that can do this, and they do it extremely well, and they do it efficiently and quickly, and it's really inexpensive for this process. So if you ever get to that point where you need consultants, we'll be glad to help you try to find some of those folks. The Mayor, it's 40 positions vacant as we speak. And this year has been the least volatile year that I've experienced in 20 years, at least, of manager turnover after the elections. There's always a big swing of turnovers after the new boards are sworn in for obvious political reasons. That has not been the case this year. It's been extremely low. But we still have this many vacancies in the state. And so when you decide what you're going to do, I encourage you to set your plan, work your plan, and stay on it, because these other folks are as anxious, or maybe more so. Their managers may already be gone, and they've got an interim in there. They need to move more quickly than you might want to move. So develop your plan and work your plan and stay on track, because I can assure you that you'll be in good competition out there as you begin your process for this year. Fortunately, the elections are over with for a couple of terms now, and so things should stabilize even more, but a lot of retirements out there. I'm always asked, almost always asked, can a candidate from out of the state of North Carolina do as good a job as someone from North Carolina? And the answer is, it just depends. That's a good legal answer. But a manager has a certain set of skills that they can apply wherever they are. It doesn't matter where they're from. If they've got good managerial skills, they go with them wherever they go. However, if they're not from North Carolina, you will need to allow a little longer training curve for them than if you hire someone that's practicing in North Carolina, because of the different laws that govern each state differently. The North Carolina laws. They're all different, and a seasoned manager can quickly come up to speed, but it will take them a little longer than someone who's actually practicing the trade already in North Carolina. Okay? And I know Miss Piner's been with your town a long time. And I can tell you that during my career, that managers used to go to a location and if they got to a certain spot and they particularly liked the town they were in, they would stay there for 10, 15, 20 years and retire. You're not seeing that anymore anywhere in the state. As these older managers who have reached that point in their tenure, it's more career path in there for the younger managers coming in to start off somewhere and use each town based on their size and population and their ability to grow as their conduit to increasing their professional skills and moving up. And so because someone has left a job and was only there 4 or 5 years, you need to look at the reasoning for that. If it was an opportunity for those folks to move up and have upward mobility, then that's probably a good thing. So make sure you're in sync with your consultant if you use a consultant to figure all of those things out to make sure that you don't eliminate some really good people because their track record looks like they're, 4 or 5 years on a job and gone, because a lot of the managers coming out of school start at the small towns and work their way up, and they typically stay about 5 years before they have mastered the skills in that town and ready to take on something a little bit bigger. And with that, I will subject myself to whatever questions you might have.
Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Mr. Wright, so when you check I'm assuming you checked the league website today, you said it's about 10% statewide
Yes,
vacancy. Sir. What's that normally run? What have you seen it
It usually runs between 6 and 8%. I mean, consistently. And they're not all town managers. Some of those are county managers, and some of them are assistant managers in a larger municipality or county. But they're still the same candidates and the same quality of people that you're looking for to come here. So the pool is still what it is. That's a really good question.
Have you seen, and I'm in looking at those two sites and looking at what towns are doing through the process, have you seen things other towns are doing to differentiate themselves, make themselves more competitive with the pool of applicants? I mean, I know that Ben Franklin's always number one. Yeah.
Normally that's part of that's where the negotiations begin, but it gets a little deeper than that. What I have found, and each town has its own sale for what you have in Wendell that you want to try to attract someone here for. You got a lot going for you. You got a lot of growth going on. I rode around a little bit before it got too dark. And you got a lot going on, which is exciting for a younger person in particular, for a manager who wants to come in and start practicing their skills. My experience has shown me, and I know this sounds coy, but my experience has shown me the better that the board conducts the process, the more personal they try to make it with the candidate. For example, if you've got a candidate coming in to interview with the board, if it's all possible, try to find out if they have a spouse or, what their family situation is. And if the spouse can come, let them assign somebody to them. There's your chance to do your Chamber of Commerce sale. And take them around and show them all the amenities you have, your schools, your hospitals, all of those things that are important to someone who's relocating. Because it's not an individual decision to change jobs. It's a family decision. You've got to uproot your family and move, and so the family is part of that decision process. If you care enough about them that you extend yourself to the family, oftentimes, and you may not agree with this, but it's real, oftentimes that will be the factor that they will consider choosing you over someone else. Of course, you've got to be competitive with your salary.
Just one more. So I have a notion, and I'll just see if you want to confirm it or continue to let it just be a notion of mine. But one of the selling points for me is that we are in Wake County.
Yes.
Do you see that play into management hiring decisions? If you're a Guilford, if you're a Mecklenburg, if you're a Wake, is that a draw?
It is a draw. Because you're in Wake County, it's a draw. It's just like if you were in a resort area that they are drawing. There are also some drawbacks to that, and that is congestion, price of housing, and those types of things that some of the more rural communities don't have to deal with. So you have to factor in those things, and I know it's way premature to talk about these things, but once you get a candidate that you want to hire, work with them on relocating, you know, and helping them with their relocation expenses, and give them a reasonable period of time to find housing here before you have your drop dead date if you got to have a house inside of Wendell city limits before such and such. You need to understand what they're going through. The houses might be selling, you put it on the market one day here and 2 weeks later it's gone, but where they're coming from, their house might be sitting on the market for months. And the last thing you need is a manager to come in and get a mortgage in Wendell, and they're still sitting on a mortgage somewhere else. And that adds stress that just does not need to be part of the equation.
My question was basically his, what is the advantage, is it an advantage to be in Wake County? Specifically, does it hurt us at all that we're a small town inside of, you know, a large, fast-growing county?
It is an absolutely attractive thing, and I can envision that you would have some candidates from larger municipalities who are like assistant managers and large departments. You got some towns in Wake County that one department is bigger than your whole city, you know, and if a person manages that one department, they're managing more people than your manager does for the whole town. So they've got those managerial skills. It's just how much are you willing to allow for a training curve for those people to get up to speed to be your town manager?
I think this is new to almost all of us, or if not all of us. But
none of you were here last time I was here. So.
I don't think so.
I was here.
Yes, you were.
This idea of the town manager living in town, that's fairly standard, fairly common.
It is, except in your resort towns, because most resort towns don't pay a manager enough to be able to afford a home in their resort area, so they have to live outside of the area, outside of the municipality. It used to be very strong, and for I say the highest percentage of our towns still require a residency for their manager. It's not required. It's a political decision that you have to make about what your citizens will expect. You know, your citizens, will they accept a manager not living in town, but they're the one recommending the budget and the tax rate to you folks for running the town. So it's a political thing you have to weigh. But the manager is the only position that I would ever even consider the board making a residency requirement. Otherwise, it would be maybe it's police chief, you know, or fire chief, or make them, you could require them to be able to respond to your municipality within a certain period of time, but not necessarily have to live inside the corporate limits. But most of the towns are still requiring that. And most managers, quite frankly, most professional managers will want to live within the corporate limits of the town they're managing. There are unique circumstances where a manager someone may already be living in Wake County, working in another municipality at some level, where their children are already in school and in high school, and their spouse works another job, and they may consider coming here, but they wouldn't consider moving their whole family out of their current situation to come here. So those are just things that you need to be prepared to discuss.
You said right now we're at 10% of the states looking at manager, and it's typically between 6 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
But the recent election didn't have anything to do.
It's retirements. Baby boomers are leaving, and A lot of them are still young and could continue to work. Some of them are retiring and going to another state and starting all over again. And we see a good number of candidates from other states starting to apply here when there are vacancies so they can start their careers over again. So you don't know what's going to happen until you cast the net out there to see what you catch.
Any more questions for Mr. White? Well, thank you very much for being here with us.
You're welcome. Thank you all for having me. And again, Mayor, if you decide that collectively you want to do this yourselves rather than hire a consultant, I'll be happy to come and do a work session with you and help you through as much of the grunt work as I can. But if you're going to do a consultant, you don't need me.
All right. Thank you very much.
Excuse me.
Excuse me, guys.
Item number 6 now is a facade grant for 30 North Main Street. Mr. Reedy.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, the Board of Commissioners is requested to review, discuss, and take action on the Appearance Commission's recommendation regarding the downtown facade grant request. At the February 5th meeting, the Appearance Commission reviewed one application for the January 1st application period. This request was the first and only facade grant application that was received for this first cycle. The Appearance Commission members voted to recommend approval by a vote of 6-0 of this facade grant application for 30 North Main Street in the full amount of $1,000. On January 19th, the application was submitted to the Planning Department by owner Kathy Dara for the facade grant program. The application is to replace 2 front windows with larger windows and to seal and paint the brick on the building at 30 North Main Street. The property is going to be renovated by the owners to create a retail or office space. The property is located within the DMX district. Total estimated cost for the project is $2,600. The amount applied for is $1,000, and the facade grant allows up to $1,000. Staff has reviewed the application and deemed it complete with project costs indicated, project details provided, and photos of the existing facade included in the application. The project includes eligible improvements. The applicant has not begun making improvements yet to the building. On your monitors, you'll see the existing facade and then the approximate size of the new windows to kind of make a more inviting storefront into the building. Staff recommends that the Board of Commissioners review the recommendation of the Appearance Commission in related to the facade grant program in order to render action on the submitted applications. Are there any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the facade grant request for 30 North Main Street in the amount of $1,000.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the facade grant request for 30 North Main. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor? All right. Next, item number 7 is a request to temporarily close a portion of North Main Street for the upcoming Pro-Town BMX show. Mr. Pulaski.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. We are here to request a street closing for Main Street for March the 24th. That is for the Pro-Town BMX event. We would like to close around 9:30 to help get some of that parked traffic out and then reopen it at 5 once the event ends. They have been ending a little earlier in the past, but we did push the second show back 30 minutes last year. The riders didn't get a chance to eat lunch in between shows. Also, during this same event this year, we're going to be implementing, we recognize our baseball all-stars in the fall. We're going to recognize our basketball all-stars at this same event during that layover period because we haven't been recognizing those athletes. So that will be integrated into this event as well. But we're looking to close the southern side of Maine I did go the other day, door to door. Everyone down in the area was excited about this event except for one. The owner of Ladybugs was not too excited about shutting the street down that day. She does have what's called a shop hop. It is a 3-day event. And that will be one of the 3 days would be that Saturday. Actually, I think that's the last day of that event. She has 2 days prior to that it's going as well, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But everyone else on the block was super excited about the event and completely agrees with closing it down for those times.
Is this event that she participates in, is this an annual event?
I think this is the first year I've heard about it. She did not mention it to me last year, and it was the same weekend as it was last year. She did speak with Miss Piner, and she may elaborate a little more than I can because she did actually speak to her as well as you. And you know, Miss Piner offered her some kind of, you know, not incentives, but some things to maybe ease her concerns about the event, such as signage for directing people around to 3rd Street. I assured her that 3rd Street would not be closed. It's not that much farther of a walk for someone. Her concern was someone not being able to just park right in front of her store.
For next year, can we coordinate with that, please, and either go
Yes.
weekend ahead or weekend back?
Yes.
And see from her if that's an annual event and not conflict with that.
Mayor, that is an annual event. We already have those dates. I've sent those out, and we will work with ProTown BMX to avoid those dates.
Okay. I know we can't always make everything perfect for everyone, but on the occasion when we find out about things, I want us to make an effort to do that. And it's a shame we didn't know about this.
She said it was planned a year in advance, so, you know, I just wish we'd have known this ahead of time.
You know, we talked to them right after they were here last year, so
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but, okay. All right, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Pulaski?
Feeling better?
Much.
Good.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the temporary closing of North Main Street for the date of the ProTown BMX show.
Okay, so we have a motion to temporarily close a portion of North Main for the upcoming ProTown BMX show. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 8 is a public hearing for annexation petition A1705 for 3 parcels located off Eagle Rock Road.
Thank you,
Mr. Mark.
Madam Mayor, members of the board. As stated, this is a public hearing for an annexation request. This is a satellite annexation request. The applicant in this case is Maria Barahona, and this is 3 lots that contains 2 dwellings. So action tonight following the public hearing could consist of approving the attached ordinance. We'll actually have an update for that. Denying the annexation request or delaying action until a future date. These parcels are sitting with the closest annex areas surrounding them being Wendell Falls to the southwest or the Anderson property to the northeast. A little under half an acre with an additional approximately half an acre of railroad right-of-way that would be associated with it. This petition came up because the well on this property essentially is going bad, and there's a water line directly on that road, which caused them to petition in order to be able to access that water line per our policy in the town of and the city of Raleigh's policy. In this, in your staff reports, we discussed some of the complications with serving this area just due to the distance it is from the existing annexed areas, both from a police standpoint in terms of running routes to this area and providing protection and answering any calls that may arise if this were annexed, as well as from a public works standpoint, you know, providing any street side service that we do. For those reasons, as well as the fairly limited tax space that would be drawn since this is such a small area with fairly low values, staff was recommending that we not move forward with annexation, but just before this meeting and talking with the town attorney, he informed me that due to statutory requirements for satellite annexations in comparison to those adjacent to our corporate limits, that we would actually, between the option of delaying action or denying it, we would really be forced to move forward with the denying annexation at this time, unless we had all the surrounding properties as well as this, even though it was subdivided or divided into lots back over 100 years ago, that for the satellite annexations, you really have to take the whole unit. You can't take a part of the unit.
Part of the subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
Is prohibited to
Correct.
be part.
Correct.
Okay.
So under the attorney's advice, that sounds like the only option before us to respond to this request.
Okay, so,
I would still recommend going forward with the public hearing in case anyone's going to speak to that issue, but in my review of it, it appears to be part of a subdivision.
okay,
And we do have two representatives of the property owner here tonight.
okay. I have a question. If it's denied, do they have some water availability options? What are their options?
They could still connect. So whether it's denying it for this reason or just denying it because we didn't think it made sense from a service standpoint, they could still connect, but they are subject to paying a double rate since they're not paying the town taxes that somebody in town would pay.
All right. The public hearing is now open. Would anyone like to speak in favor or in opposition of the annexation petition? Okay, seeing no one. Public hearing is now closed. I guess I need a motion to deny to maintain statute.
In light of the attorney's comments, then Madam Mayor, I make a motion to deny the annexation request at 6806 and 6808 Ninedale Eagle Rock Road.
Okay, so the motion is to deny the annexation petition. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item number 9 is a discussion of the proposed fiscal year 2018-2019 budget calendar. Mr. Kay, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the board. You have in your agenda packet the proposed budget calendar for the fiscal year 2018-2019. This obviously is proposed dates and times that the board would meet and have work sessions and hopefully adopt a budget at the date that we have in the calendar there. If anything needs to be changed, we certainly can make changes or adjustments, but if not, we would ask that the calendar be approved by the board.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Kay? Okay, do you have a motion to adopt the budget calendar?
Motion to adopt the calendar.
All right, motion to adopt the calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item number 10. Take a look at our snapshot.
Madam Manager, I haven't been down Pine Street in a while, and I see that it says that brush mower has been moved.
Yes,
It has. It's not there.
it has been moved.
It's been moved out of Wendell.
That is my understanding. I have not seen it or been able to locate it.
Oh, excellent. Has there been any further update on, and I'm glad they're no longer using the right-of-way as storage for their equipment, but do they intend to fix their railroad crossing anytime soon? Or have you heard anything else?
I have sent 2 emails and to Mr. Holman, and I had on 1/9 and then 1/24, and I have had no responses to the emails from the railroad at all. Anyway.
I'll I'll make a phone call tomorrow morning and see if I can't help spur that along again.
I'm getting a little flustered with the railroad crossing. I mean, how long do you have to beg them to come fix it? I don't understand.
Last time we had to threaten to close the road down.
Maybe we need to do that again. I mean, it's dangerous. I get complaints about it all the time. All right, is there anything on here any of y'all have any questions about? Move on to the next one. Item 11 is update on board committees by town board members. The first one on here is Campo, and that's mine. We discussed when we last met and received a report on the 2018-2027 Transportation Improvement Program amendments number 1 and 2. We held executive board elections. We got an update about the North Carolina DOT Falls of the News project update. We discussed the fiscal year 2019 LAF investment program, the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, and the safety performance measures and targets and P5 spot update. Let's see. Mayor Pro Tem Lutz, Triangle J.
Yeah, I wasn't able to attend the last meeting. I had another conflict that night, but the after action report they send out, they noted they did the recognition of outgoing and incoming new members, presentation of the 16-17 audit reports, and recognition of the town of Clayton due to the success of the regional summit they had last September. And then we heard a presentation from Triangle Farms for Food. And finally, action was taken to approve sponsoring Tobacco Rag Processors Incorporated application for a foreign trade zone usage-driven site.
Okay. And Commissioner Joyner, Fire Advisory Board.
I was actually in Wilmington advocating for firefighters during the last Fire Advisory Board meeting, but in conversations before and after the meeting with the chief, they reviewed upcoming budget works, made some augmentation to their organizational structure so that they can comply with upcoming budget issues, as well as making sure they're prepared for the budget impacts of the new fire station.
All right. And Commissioner's report. Commissioner Carroll.
No comment.
Commissioner Lutz.
Not tonight.
Commissioner Boyette.
How about that Wolfpack? I was proud of them.
I was too. Don't make me get the gavel out.
And I didn't know if we, speaking of Triangle J, I did want to mention that we had them here in town. I thought it was a lovely session we had. With representatives from Knightdale and Zebulon were here. And at least the portion that I made it to late, I thoroughly enjoyed. And we just talked about what the Triangle J does and how they work to and serve all the communities. A lot of that overlaps with the league, and both of those are real good resources. So I just wanted to say that I thought that was a really good meeting, and I'm glad that they're doing that sort of outreach now and coming out and visiting. So that's all I had.
Commissioner Joyner.
Mayor, wanted to highlight a couple things. One, for those that are here that haven't read it online previously or watching from home that haven't read it online previously, obviously we're going to be going under a manager search that's it's going to be real important for our future as a town. Picking the right leaders is always something that has impacts immediately, but then has untold impacts for years to come. So getting this right is something that we're committed to doing as a board. I appreciate Ms. Piner's flexibility with her resignation date to allow this board to adequately go through the process you heard described earlier tonight. The other piece is Mr. K came up and highlighted the budget calendar for us and we passed that right on through. But if you'll go through and look at the agenda, there's a date in there where we are soliciting you, the public, to come to us to tell us what you want moving forward. So if you like Protown BMX, tell us you like it. If you don't like Protown BMX, tell us you don't like it. If you like Parks and Rec, but you want more, tell us you like it. The only thing you cannot do is not say anything and then say a word about it after July 1. Now, I'm certain that there are people in this room that will do that. I'm certain that there's people on this side of the dais that will do that. But what I'm asking for and what I've now been pitching for since November of last year is the budget is coming. Please come to us with your request. We can't fund things we don't know about, and we also can't reallocate funds and move things to reflect the community's desires if we're not being told what the community desires. The squeaky wheel does get the oil. So I, for one, look forward to this budget process. I think we're going to have some really good numbers, and I look forward to it, but I hope that the public will get involved.
Thank you. I was thinking this afternoon about what I was going to share with y'all. I've had a big run of things that I've done lately it's a busy time of year. But I thought I would tell you about, for some reason, there's been a lot of things going on at our schools that I've been invited to lately. One stands out in particular. I went to East Wake High School mid-year graduation. And I'm particularly proud of those young men and women because they are exceptional in one way or the other. They either have worked really hard and graduated early, or they've been very tenacious and hung in there and are graduating a little bit late, but they're still finishing. And I'm very proud of all of them, equally proud of the ones that finished early and the ones that didn't finish quite on time but still finished. I'm very proud of those young men and women. So I wanted to thank them for inviting me. I always enjoy going to that. I was also interviewed by some students at Wendell Middle here recently in the last few days for their morning TV show, and I attended the Read Aloud Day at Carver Elementary, where I read books to 4 classes, and there were some firemen there that came on the fire truck. How do you compete with that?
You don't.
I couldn't. But anyhow, it was a really fun day, and I enjoyed being at Carver, and I enjoyed being at Wendell Middle and East Wake High School, so I thank them for all inviting me. I've been handed a note to say happy birthday to Chief Carter. So happy birthday to you. And remind everybody that Bond with the Blue is Wednesday, February 21st at Edward Jones. And Princess in the Park is Saturday, February 24th at 4. And following the Princess visits, you get to watch the movie Moana. And Party with a Purpose is also Saturday, February 24th. That's going to be a busy day here in Wendell from 7 to 11. This year's theme is the Roaring 20s, and I have tickets. If you'd like to go, it's always a fun event, and the money raised is for art projects in Wendell. And let's see, we're also going to have a special work session of the town board on Monday, February 26th at 6 o'clock to receive information about municipal election districts. So that's going to be an interesting thing that we're going to look at. That being said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. We're adjourned.